I think where we maybe should begin is, one, what's legal and illegal under current law? And two, what are the priorities and objectives and goals of putting forth this framework? And so as I look at this, and Ms. Schlupp, I'd love for you to comment on this, it's to facilitate compliance with the law. And under current law, insider trading's illegal, including for members of Congress. We can have a conversation about the enforcement of that. Using information derived from one's position here in Congress is illegal under current law. We can have a conversation about the enforcement mechanisms of that. And so compliance of the law, I think, is a key principle that we should be looking at. Ensuring members, family, and staff don't take unfair advantage of information gained from their congressional work, I think, is an important topic for us to consider as we look at this. And to provide confidence to the American people that we are in compliance with that we avoid the appearance of an impropriety. I think those are three key principles amongst others. Are there other key principles that you think that we should consider before I begin my questioning here?
I believe that those are the key principles here. You're correct that insider trading is already illegal.
Okay, so then let's dive in. We've heard a series of ways that we could enhance this to make sure that we're avoiding the appearance of impropriety, that we enforce the law, and we make sure that members are in compliance with that law. Let's dive in first to the blind trust. What first the compliance costs as it relates to a blind trust? What would be the compliance costs for members in a blind trust scenario?
Compliance costs for blind trusts tend to be substantial. Usually takes multiple thousands of dollars to set one up.
Okay,
and
so,
there's an ongoing.
No, I'm just going to move quickly because I'm limited in time. So it's substantial. We could decide whether or not that's good or bad, but it's a substantial cost. And then would members of the public have confidence in the execution of the blind trust? Meaning a blind trust is only as good as it is blind. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment.
So the structure of that blind trust then becomes absolutely paramount if Congress chose to go down that path. Let's shift gears, a complete stock trading ban. Thinking about the implementation of that, so envision a member of Congress coming here, say she was previously an executive at a publicly traded company, she has a significant portfolio. Would she then be required to divest that entire portfolio upon arrival in Congress?
Some of the proposals would require that.
And what would happen if somebody had to fully divest, if she had to fully divest her portfolio, what would be the general implications to her?
The first is that there could be substantial tax consequences for that, and depending on where the market is, it could be substantial losses to her investment.
Or substantial gains, but,
yes.
but substantial tax implications for her upon arrival, and maybe a consideration as to whether or not she chooses to run in the first place. I think something worthwhile for us to consider is how we would begin that implementation for somebody who arrives in that capacity. Let me shift gears slightly for something that I don't think we've talked a ton about. I used to work in a publicly traded company. I was involved in the enforcement of Section 16A officers, their compliance with securities laws. Our securities laws gives us a framework with which to understand how publicly traded companies deal with this insider information, the appearance of impropriety for those insiders as well. Do you think that members should be banned from what I'm going to call sophisticated trades, swaps, options, shorting stocks? Would that improve would that improve the public's confidence that members are not engaging in insider trading?
No, I think it'll have little difference on the public's confidence in that front.
Okay. I may not fully agree with that. I think there's some opportunities that we may want to consider and look in that space. Let me shift gears then, in particular with other ways of adjusting the protocols to accomplish the same benefit without maybe a full ban of stocks, just to explore this space. Would minimum holding periods improve the public's confidence in members of Congress abiding by the law?
It may have some effect.
So if you had say, just for sake of throwing a number out, if you had a 90-day minimum holding period to remove quick movements in and out of stocks, it would be longer than the duration of a publicly traded company's financial reporting. It may improve the confidence of the American people in members.
There may be some effect.
May be worth us considering that. The other is our current regime has a disclosure after the sale of stock. Some public companies have gone forward with a disclosure prior to the sale or acquisition, a delayed closing, if you will. Say, for sake of discussion, 10 days, where an announcement would be made 10 days in advance prior to the sale or acquisition of a stock. Would that alter the appearance of the impropriety as people would be analyzing a member of Congress or another insider from engaging in a trade?
It may have some effect.
And would the burden placed upon that member or a spouse be significant or lighter than a blind trust scenario or a forced sale?
It should be lighter than a blind trust or a for sale.
I appreciate your insights today. Cognizant of the time, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Butterfield is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for convening this very, very important hearing today. And I especially want to thank the 5 witnesses for your testimony as well. Mr. Sherman, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again,
I was
sir.
on the Ethics Committee when you served as